Welcome to the Weekly Roar, coming live from the Lion's Den, helping new managers become great leaders and awesome bosses. And now, here's your host, Greg Storch.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Lion's Den. This is the Weekly Roar. Man, it's hard to believe that in just a few short days, we're going to be rolling right into March already. Where is the time going? There's only one more thing to discuss about rebooting your leadership before I provide a summary. And then we're going to jump into a whole new leadership series. But today I'm going to discuss probably one of the hardest things that we're going to have to do as leaders. You may have heard that the hardest person to lead is yourself. Well, that's true. It takes a lot of self-discipline, and I'm going to discuss why today. But first, I'm Greg Storch. I'm the founder of Lion Enterprise, a leadership development and coaching business where I focus on creating winning work cultures, one leader at a time. I'm a certified professional leadership coach and a certified leadership speaker and trainer. Now, last week, I continued my new leadership series called Leadership Reboot 2020, Start With You. And it's my latest leadership series that's designed to bring us all back to basics by doing a leadership reboot. And hopefully helping all of us to take a look at ourselves as leaders first, because it all starts with you. Now, last Wednesday, I talked about why it was important for leaders to have vision and how they could cultivate it. Leaders have to know more and before others, and vision is what helps them to do that. It's really the leader's responsibility to cast the vision so their followers know where they're going and why. When you find your vision, you have to nurture it and embrace it. You have to own it and paint a compelling picture of it for your followers, because vision is an essential quality of leadership. Without it, it's going to be difficult to reach your full potential as a leader. Now, if you missed last week's episode of the Weekly Roar, all you have to do is go to my website at www.lion-enterprise.com. Click up at the top on Lion's Pride Library, and that's going to get you to the page where you're going to find all the links to my videos. Now, last week's video is number 92. We're sneaking up on my 100th episode, which I think will happen in mid-April, and I've got something really cool planned to celebrate it. So be on the lookout to find out what's happening in the Lion's Den in mid-April. When you go to my website and check out the Lion's Pride Library, you're going to see that it's a great free resource for you, not only to access previous videos, but it's a great way for you to get more of the roar. Okay, let's get started with the Weekly Roar. If you want to be successful in leadership, in anything really, you have to have self-discipline. Good leaders practice self-control before they try to lead others, and self-discipline has to come first before you're going to find success as a leader. Consider it the price you have to pay to lead others. Why do you think having self-discipline or self-control is so important for leaders? Remember what I said a few weeks ago? We can't give what we don't have, right? We have to lead ourselves before we can lead others. We can't take our followers any further than we've gone ourselves, and That's why having self-discipline is so important to our success as leaders. You may have heard this before, but it's true. And that's that everything worthwhile is uphill. That means everything we desire in life, those really important things, the things that are significant to us, they're going to require a lot of effort, and achieving them is going to be difficult. Without self discipline, it'll be damn near impossible. You know, nobody got anywhere by coasting downhill. It doesn't take any effort for us to just coast. Gravity does all the work while you just sit back and relax without any effort. No, anything significant is going to be a challenge. It's an uphill climb, and it's going to require us to be very intentional in everything we do. And being intentional takes self-discipline. See, self-discipline is what sets us apart as leaders. It's the difference between a successful leader and an unsuccessful one. There are no such things as accidental achievements. So I want to spend the time today in the weekly roar to share several truths about self-discipline with you. If you'll embrace these truths and act on them, you'll be prepared to take the uphill journey and be able to pay the price tag of leadership. So what do you say we get started? The first thing I want to share with you, truth number one, is that self-discipline helps you conquer yourself. It's what helps you to continue to go uphill. We all want to improve our lives, but not all of us know how to do that. The answer lies in self-discipline because, as I just said a few minutes ago, self-discipline helps you to be intentional with your actions. And that's what it takes to achieve success. Now, if you want to move from having good intentions to getting good results, it's gonna take self-discipline. It's what will separate just having ideas and talking about what you want to do and actually doing it and getting results. See, self-discipline is what helps us continue climbing uphill and never quit. That's what separates us from the unsuccessful people. Those people who are always getting ready to get ready. You know who I'm talking about. They always get started, but they never seem to finish. This is why I always say that leading ourselves is the hardest thing we'll do. You know, constantly going uphill, it's tiring, it's exhausting, and it takes self-discipline to make ourselves want to keep moving in that direction. You know, it'd be really nice to just stop and coast for a while, but you can't do that. The minute you coast, you lose the ground you gained the day before. But the good news is that the more consistent you become, the more conditioned you get by it. And while it isn't easy, it does get better. You know, here in northern Italy, we live very close to the Dolomites. That's a mountain range that makes up part of the Italian Alps. One of the people that worked for my wife when we first got here was an avid mountain climber. And I remember seeing a picture of her one day of her climbing one of the mountains, and she was suspended from this peak that was jetting out from the side of the mountain, and it looks like she was suspended in midair by a tiny rope. It was enough to make my stomach drop. So I asked her, "How are you able to do that?" I wondered if she was afraid of falling, and this is what she told me. She said, "Climbing mountains isn't easy, But every time I climb, the next mountain gets easier. It's not about conquering the mountain, it's about conquering yourself. And there you have it, folks. That's what self-discipline helps us to do. Conquer ourselves so we can keep moving uphill. Truth number 2 is that self-discipline is what takes you from being pained to being sustained. Like that? Self-discipline is what helps us to sustain our success. You see, anyone can do most things for a short period of time, but having self-discipline is really the factor that helps the successful people sustain the climb uphill. Why is that important? Because while everything you want to achieve in life is all uphill, that journey really never comes to an end. You're going to have to keep climbing. There is no shortcut to the top, and the journey isn't temporary. There's a price tag for leadership. Great leaders know that once they begin the journey to make the climb, they'll be trudging uphill year after year after year. The trail is long, and I want you to realize that once you commit, you're going to need self-discipline to keep you hiking up that trail. I think of self-discipline as the cornerstone of success. A cornerstone of a building is that first stone that's set when they're building a brick or a stone foundation. And everything else is set in reference to that one cornerstone, which determines the position of the entire structure. There are a ton of success principles out there, like do what you should do, when you should do it, whether you feel like it or not. Persistence always wins. Or success is a journey of countless baby steps. The list goes on and on and on. There's hundreds of them. But none of these principles work without self-discipline. That's why I say it's the cornerstone of success. You have to have this first, and then all others align to that. I want to ask you something. When you have the choice to take an elevator or take the stairs, what do you usually do? Now, I'm not talking about when your room's on the 24th floor. Nobody's going to take the, well, not many people will take the stairs, but in the cases where there is an obvious choice whether to take stairs or an elevator, do you usually do what's easy and good in the short term, like just take the elevator? Or do you choose the stairs and do what's difficult but good for the long term? Maybe your health. See, a few years ago, when it was, of course, reasonable, I'd always start taking the stairs. You know, sometimes it's a real pain and I don't want to do it, but making that decision to do that over pressing a button and taking the lift, well, that helped me to develop my self-discipline. Taking the easy way in everything ironically leads to creating a life that's difficult. You can't always take the easy way out. It's the things that are more difficult, those tough challenges that we face and the rigors of constantly trudging uphill that end up creating the life we all want. Being consistent compounds. That means that if I continually do the things I should be doing, then I will eventually achieve the success I'm after. The challenge comes in when we allow our decisions to be ruled by emotions rather than logic. If you're a live in the moment type of person, then you really need to develop your self-discipline to make more logical decisions when you feel compelled by your emotions to do the things that may not be the best for you. Okay, truth number 3. Self-discipline helps us become deliberate and consistent. Now, why is this important to know? Because being deliberate and consistent are keys to forming habits. And our habits are what can make or break us. Bad thinking results in bad habits, and good thinking results in good habits. What we think determines who we are, and who we are determines what we do. Our challenge is to get ourselves to a place where we think in a way that helps us make choices that will result in good habits. See, the problem with a lot of people is that they have uphill dreams, but they have downhill habits. The challenge is to change those habits to match the uphill dreams. And we can do that by becoming deliberate and consistent in our actions. You may have seen me wearing one of my favorite t-shirts. It says, "Mindset changes everything." I love that shirt because I really believe it. At the core of how we think is a reflection of our attitude towards life, really. When we think negatively, we develop habits that lead to things like procrastination and making excuses. But when we think positively, we take responsibility and we take action. Our thinking determines our habits. Mindset changes everything. If you believe that life should be easy, then you might expect to get things without expending much effort, if anything at all. Waiting and wishing for things to happen will not lead you to success. But when we take responsibility, take control of our lives, we can make things happen. If we don't take control of our lives, someone else will, and we may not like what they have planned for us. Keep growing and changing on the inside, starting with your thinking, because having self-discipline with your thoughts will help you change your habits in a way that they will help you to continue making that uphill climb. We're on truth number 4, and that is self-discipline is developed daily, not in a day. Now, I've got great news for you. If you need to work on being more disciplined, well, that's something that can be developed. We aren't born with self-discipline. When we don't develop our discipline, we keep a lid on reaching our potential. It gets in the way of achieving success. But since self-discipline is something we can develop and get better at, then we all have the power to remove that lid. Having awareness of whether or not you lack self-discipline is the first step to developing and strengthening it. We have to understand where our weaknesses are in order to address them. If you know you need to get better with your discipline, here are some things that you can pay more attention to in order to help you strengthen it. Here's a great one. First of all, you got to avoid temptations. Now, this is a big one. See, a couple of years ago, I found myself being overweight. Actually, according to US standards, I was considered obese. I weighed more than I had ever weighed in my entire life. I think at that point, I was tipping the scales around 215 pounds. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but for my frame and build, it was extremely an unhealthy weight for me. I got into that situation because of a lack of self-discipline, but I was able to get out of it by developing my self-discipline and getting better at it. You see, people who develop their self-discipline and positive habits don't put themselves in the line of fire. When it's time to order that dessert, do you have the discipline to just call it a night instead? Whenever you're tempted, exercise self-discipline, and your self-discipline will start to get stronger and stronger. Another thing that will help you to develop your self-discipline is to understand that you can either pay now or pay later. You want to know what I mean by that? Here's an example that I can think of from my own personal life. It's when I had the choice to invest in a 401k with my previous employer. I knew that investing now would allow me to enjoy retirement later, even though I'd be getting less money in my paycheck every payday. I also knew that if I chose to contribute less to my 401k or nothing at all, even though I'd have more money every payday, I would pay later by not being able to retire when I wanted to. Self-discipline is developed by saying yes when we really want to say no, investing most of my paycheck into my 401k, and then saying no when we want to say yes. Remember that dessert? Okay, let's move on to truth number 5, and that is self-discipline creates consistency. Consistency, well, it's like a set of tires for our car. It doesn't look pretty, but everyone needs it. Consistency is tough because when we're consistent, we don't see the benefits of our consistency very quickly, do we? The tough thing about consistency is being consistent with it. Being consistent's hard because we don't get to see the rewards of it immediately. Oftentimes we find ourselves asking, why the hell am I doing this? Because we don't know when the day will come that we bear the fruit of our labor. But one thing I know for sure is that creating consistency will result in a lot of positive things for us. First of all, when we're consistent, it helps us to establish a good reputation. When I was in the Navy, I developed what we called a service reputation that was very good. I was a dental equipment repairman for 10 years, and I had to fix dental equipment and install new equipment in the dental clinics that were assigned to me. Every day I'd go into our system and I'd pull all the service requests for my clinics. I'd anticipate what parts I would need, and I'd load up my van and I'd get on the road. I had the same routine every day, and my customers came to expect me. Not only that I would show up to their clinics every morning, but that I'd be able to fix their broken equipment for them when I came. That's how I became dependable and developed a good service reputation with my customers, by being consistent. You see, anyone can be good once in a while, but only those of us who have some self-discipline can be consistently good. Being consistent is what gets people to notice you, and they become to expect that you can deliver on what you say you will. The other thing is that consistency also leads to excellence. Tiger Woods is known as the most accomplished golfer in the sport. He practices golf a lot. Well, all top professional golfers do. And how do you think they got so good? It's not natural talent. Okay, some may have some natural talent, but they have to consistently hone that talent and build it and work on it in order to keep winning at golf. Now, I was looking at an article the other day about what it takes to become a professional golfer. And in the article, it said to practice your golf stroke correctly 100 times is helpful. To practice it 1,000 times is game changing. To practice it 10,000 times is life changing. That's a great perspective on consistency and how it can create excellence. And the last thing I'm going to tell you is that consistency, it has a compounding effect. The sooner we start and the more consistent we are at it, the better we become at what we're consistently doing. Consistency and self-discipline are all intentional actions. And we all know that if we want to grow, we have to be intentional about it. Motivation may get you going, but self-discipline keeps you growing. Successful people do daily what unsuccessful people only do on occasion. Consistency is what helps us end well after we start well. If we want to become the best leader we can be, we have to pay the price of self-discipline. Now, I know that a lot of those in leadership positions foster a really strong desire to help others, to add value to them. We want to invest in our followers and lead them to something of significance. But we have to do that for ourselves before we can do that for others. I'm pretty sure that everyone here, everyone watching this video has flown on a plane before. You know that during the safety briefing, the flight attendants tell you to put on your own oxygen mask before trying to help others do it. Now, that's a great example of what I'm talking about. It's impossible to effectively help other people if we can't help ourselves first. Self-discipline is what enables us to do that, to help ourselves first. I'm going to leave you with a quote by Henry David Thoreau, who wrote, "That aim in life is highest, which requires the highest and finest discipline." Just think about that. Okay, everyone, that does it for me today. Thanks for watching The Weekly Roar. I'm going to be back here next week speaking about one last way that you can reboot your leadership in 2020. Next week, I'm going to talk about the last thing that you should consider rebooting in your leadership. This one thing is going to help you expand your leadership. We need to talk about personal growth before I wrap this series up. Our growth matters because our capacity to grow determines our capacity to lead. I hope you're going to join me next week. I look forward to seeing you all again in the Lion's Den. Okay, my friends, until we meet again next Wednesday, remember, be powerful, but stay poised, just like a lion. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Weekly Roar live event at lionenterprise.com. If you enjoyed this video, please tell others to join us each week here in the Lion's Den. Thanks again, and see you next week.